when you get the headphones in, big lad. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the Big News Podcast with me, your host, Paul Hughes. My guest today is an extra special one, once again. I think that truly he has one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever heard, period, full stop. I feel very privileged and honoured to have him sitting here today. I haven't seen you in a minute, so it's good to actually see you. My guest today, D1's finest, Mr. Ryan Chaos Curtis. Ryan, what's the story,
introduction, bro? Thank you, brother.
I must say that the setting with the peak cap with the art behind you here, it all sits in very nice.
It all blends in.
I like it. But bro, like, first of all, thanks for coming up the road. You've drove all the way from Dublin here to come up to us in Hillsborough, the record room, Hillsborough Studios, the plug. But I appreciate it, bro. There's so much I want to talk to you about. As I say, I haven't actually seen you in probably a month, so it's good to catch up. But also, like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about you that, you know, we've never really had that. Like, we see each other here and there at shows, at the gym, and it's in and out, but we never really get to sit down and have that long form of a conversation. Yeah. So there's some things about your story that I'm really curious to know. Yeah. Now, you've got your videographer here today with
Jeff,
you that we were just talking off camera. So can
Netflix documentary coming soon, baby.
Well, tell us about it, because before we get into your story, I want to talk about, first of all, your upbringing, and then, of course, your accident, which I think a lot of people know about and are curious to know, like, just how the fuck you're walking up these stairs to be here today. Yeah. But tell me, first of all, about the videographer you have here with you today and what the plans are.
So Jeff was actually following me around about 2 years prior to the accident, getting all, like, you know, we just fights coming up and stuff like that. You know, it was going to be just a traditional fight documentary. And then, you know, we were getting good footage and stuff of it. And then, unfortunately, the accident happened. And mutual friends of me and Jeff's, Colin Matton and Craig Coakley, fighters, out of Dublin Combat Academy, they came to see me very early on, and they were actually really surprised at how upbeat and positive and you know, optimistic I was about everything. And then they had reached out to Jeff going, like, oh, you know, you really need to go up and start capturing this right off the bat, you know, because I guess they were coming into the room and they were expecting, like, me to be really morbid and depressed and, you know, just really upset about the whole situation, but in quite the opposite, you know. It was like, you know, because what I say to people was I just never got upset about the whole thing, because I seen it. You know, it was like me watching a movie of how it was going to play out from day one. I knew exactly how it was going to play out, you know, and here we are now, and it's played out exactly how I said it was. So it wasn't me just being in my head or, you know, making up these scenarios. You know, here we are, and I've done everything that I've said I've going to do, and in record time, you know. So
and now it's all on camera. As well. Yeah, so someday, you know, we'll get to see that, you know.
Yeah, 100%. So Jeff got me, like, when I couldn't even move a finger. So, you know, he's captured the whole thing from literally nothing to here, and even a bit beforehand, which was nice also to give, like, a little bit of background context, you know. But yeah, like that, like, here we are now, and he's captured everything. So, like, that, it'll be truly special when it does come out, because it's not like he's just coming on board now and I'm back down all these things. Like, he literally got it when, you know, those people feeding me. So,
and even before that as well, which will be an interesting thing in itself. It won't be just a starting point from whenever the accident happened and your road to recovery. It'll be like you before that also. Yeah, not that you've changed. Like, it's not.
No, of course, but it's just nice for a little bit. That. Yeah.
That's it's amazing that you're doing that now. Yeah, and that I already know how powerful that documentary is going to be. Will it be documentary? Yeah. I can already tell how powerful.
Well, like kind of a movie.
Yeah, like potentially a 2-episode thing, but we're pushing for a movie. But 2 episodes if we have to.
Yeah. I'm pushing for the movie, you know.
Well, your life is certainly a movie.
Honestly, it feels like that way, you know. Yeah. Like, some days I just still wake up and think, like, you know, am I in a Netflix documentary or a Netflix movie? You know, honestly.
That's because he's got the camera in your face.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Just me, just waking up and Jeff's just standing there with the camera.
Yeah. Well, look, let's take it back to the start of the movie then. I want to know. I want to know. You're obviously, as I introed you, D1's finest. I know you're very close to your people down there. Like, how? Just what was your general experience growing up? Would you be tight with your family? Would you be close growing up, or what was your life in D1 like growing up?
Yeah, great. Like to be quite honest, you know, a very poverty stricken area, and not a lot of families, including my own, had money growing up, you know, but like that, a great childhood. And you know, my father passed away when I was just 2 months, but I was super close with my mother. You know, my mother was like me man and me dad all in one, you know, so I was super close. Like, no shame in even saying like I was a mammy's boy, you know.
Likewise.
So yeah, you know, so it was like I always had a great relationship with my mum. Like I loved her so much, and like with my brothers and sisters, like we are all kind of close growing up and stuff too. But and like that, you know, a good childhood out with my friends. You know, kind of doing a lot of mad stuff back then as well with my friends, but not like nothing crazy. Just like we used to give examples of like, you know, taking the tires off like you know, push bikes and stuff like that. So I was just steel
I thought you were going to say cars there, and I was like, I don't know how you managed that.
No, that wasn't until later on. No, I'm only listening. No, it was just like that. The streets raised me, you know. It was just good times in D1, and yeah, after like a very fun childhood, I would say. You know, before phones and stuff, you know, like just always kind of climbing into old buildings and, you know, just doing stuff like that, you know, and yeah, like that, a good childhood.
Yeah, so you're a proper inner city kid.
Oh yeah. And here's I got a nosebleed when I leave town.
Well, here I know all about it, because here's how I know he's a proper inner city kid. You know this story coming up. This is how much I know he's an inner city kid, and he's never even been in the countryside. For my viewers, this guy, to my fellow culties that may be watching, this guy thought that culties used lassos out in the farm. He was you was bleeding culties in your lassos. And I just went, hold on, this is about 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night. And I went, after training, I went, what did you just say to me? You was bleeding culties in your lassos. I was like, bro, you've never been in a farm in your life, have you?
That's how you round up the cattle. I was just picturing
in your mind, that's how we do it.
I was just picturing you there in a pair of cowboy boots with a little spinny yoke on the back and a little cowboy hat, just little shirt of fudge.
Like an old country and western music or movie. That's what you imagine our lives are like.
Yeah, but
so that's how I know you're a city kid. But
people from cities have that misconception of everybody outside cities.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
well,
the one there, we're just oblivious.
Yeah,
you know.
Dublin's the same in Belfast. People who grow up in the city in Belfast and Dublin are the same. They just see the city and cultures, and that's it. There's no in
that's
between.
it. There's no you're right. It's like everybody outside of the city is like cultures, and they all own farms and
so funny.
Yeah,
so funny. But anyway, to take us back to the growing up stories. So I want to know, after that, like, where sport came in for you. Did it start MMA day one, or where did that journey become?
Yeah, it was MMA from day one. You know, I remember I went into it. You know, me family are very high profile, like of a high profile family in terms of boxing. You know.
Oh really? Yeah. Like uncles.
Yeah,
cousins.
Like so basically, my grandfather and one or two of his friends, they were world champions, and there's an avenue about 3 minutes up the road from my house called Champions Avenue, and it's named after my grandfather and a couple of his friends, because they are world champions and they used to live there. You know, and then my uncles owned the St. Saviour's Boxing Club, you know, which would have been very prestigious, sent a lot of people to the Olympics and stuff like that, you know. But for me, I just never got into it. I was never interested in boxing at that stage. You know, I tried it one time and they put me in I was like in the gym, like, I don't know, like a couple of days. It literally only was a couple of days. And I went to a club show and they put me in against they were like, some guy didn't turn up, so they were like, do you want to fight? And I was like, yeah, I'll fight, I don't care, you know what I mean? I was like fighting on the streets then anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'll fight. But they put me in against a guy who was way heavier than me and just had way more fights, and he kind of bashed me a little bit. And then I was like, I'm not even going back, you know, so it kind of, you know, I just remember like it wasn't a good experience, and like I actually had no right being there, and I was like, yeah, just kids and whatever, but he was way more experienced and he way more fights, you know, way more.
What age roughly?
Probably about like only 8 or 9, something
really?
like that. Yeah, early? It was like
okay.
It was early on, you know, and there was a lot of people from the area, and I kind of he bashed me, you know, so I was like stopped going. Then after that, I was only in there for a couple of days, and then I stopped going, and then I was playing football for a little bit, with just friends, like no, never any use, to be honest. I could score goals and stuff, but it wasn't a great level. And then after that, we are in school. I remember hearing something about like the UFC, and then we start looking at the UFC, and one or two of the guys out my class was like, oh, I know this guy and he does it and he teaches and whatever. So we went to his gym, and it was in a boxing gym at the time. You know, he used to just pull out mats and put them in the ring, and we used to grapple, but like not not like any kind of level. It wasn't great. He didn't, you know, he was still only figuring everything out at this stage. I think he was just kind of looking at people in the UFC and seeing what they were doing, and then he was trying to teach that. But you understand, like that's not really realistic when you get.
How many years ago would that have been, you think? Rough estimate.
I would say probably 13 years ago.
Yeah,
13
so
or 14.
It's real early days.
Yeah,
MMA, where like most people are learning off like videotapes.
Yeah,
you know, or like instructionals.
Yeah, like I used to have an app on my phone, and you could watch videos, but like that, like they were like 3 second clips, and it was just the most basic, like sit up from guard and catch a Kimura, and you know, really low level stuff. You know, even if you wouldn't even teach it to a white belt now. You know, so
isn't it funny how still new the sport is?
Crazy.
Like that was only 13 years ago, and you're talking about throwing a few mats out in a boxing gym and trying to learn off videos, like, and nobody having a clue.
But just how much it's evolved since then, it actually in such little time, it actually just doesn't make sense. How much it's came on from them days. You know, people who was like say, I don't want to be disrespectful, but someone like a Chuck Liddell, like he probably wouldn't even be top 20 in the UFC these days.
Oh, it wouldn't
if even
not even
probably wouldn't even to be quite frank, he probably wouldn't make it to the UFC these days. That's the level. That's how much it's evolved since then.
It's a crazy thought. Like it's a crazy thought.
Yeah, mad.
So when you started training, you started picking up the instructionals from and learning from your coach. Was that was it an instant thing for you, or like this is what I'm gonna do, or was it kind of a slow burn? It's something that built on you.
It was just like I was like super delusional about it. It was just like, I'm gonna be a world champion. This is me now for the rest of my life.
What age were you?
16, I believe.
Okay.
And you know, and even at that, I even had less of a right to be even thinking that, because I remember just getting bashed. Like I was getting bashed for like, think 2 months before I was even able to do anything to anybody else, because I was so much smaller than all the rest of the guys. But then I always say it's not who started, it's who's left, and they all eventually left and went and started doing other things, and then would come back to the gym at a later stage and think, oh yeah, I'm just gonna bash Ryan again, or you know, we'll just pick up from where we left off. And then I was getting so much technically better, even though I had a size disadvantage, that it wasn't like that anymore. You know, and then they were like, oh shit, he's getting really good. But it was just because I just refused to just stop showing up.
Yeah.
That's it. It didn't matter whether it was like bashing people all the time, like 1 week, or getting bashed. Like I just showed up every day, and yeah, that's how it went.
So give me the kind of timeline then between you starting there around 15, 16 to when you had like your first amateur fight.
I had like fights in the MMA league, so on mats. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And I actually went like a little bit viral at one stage because I'd done a flying armbar.
Okay.
You know, and that kind of went viral. And then was kind of having them fights for a little bit on the mats and stuff. No strikes to the face or anything like that. And then it would have been maybe when I was 18, I believe, I had a fight on a show called Battle Zone.
Yeah, I remember.
And I actually fought a kid from James Gallagher's gym.
Okay.
I remember it was. He had a lot of fights at the time, but my coach, Owen Roddy, never told me that he had the amount of fights that he had, because he just didn't want me getting in my own head about it. And, you know, I suppose he was right, because I was only amateur anyway. It wasn't like he was trying to throw me in a professional fight. But even at that time, there was full rules. I think you could knee to the face then as well. No elbows.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, no elbows, I remember. But it was basically pro without elbows. And 3 minute rounds instead of 5s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great fight. I actually ended up winning, but it was a really tough fight, and yeah, it was brilliant. And like that, it was just, ever since then I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, I can't believe that I get to be able to go out and fight in front of people. Like, I never really thought of it as like, oh, I have to go out and fight in front of all these. It was like, now definitely I'd be lying if I was sitting here saying that I never got butterflies and stuff like that, but I was always just more excited than I was nervous.
Yeah.
It was like, I get to go out and fight in front of people here, and you don't get in trouble, and you just love doing it. It's like that, because I was always fighting on the streets anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why was that?
Enough, just because I was smaller than everybody else. But like that, not since I learned how to fight. I stopped, ironically enough, when I learned how to fight correctly, I stopped fighting on the streets.
Yeah.
Because then it was nearly like I was gaining this reputation that, like, oh, don't mess with him. And nearly like I knew what I was doing to people 3 times my size in the gym. So I was like, I'm not even going to bother you with you, because it's too easy.
Yeah.
And then I'll get in trouble for it and everything else. So it just wasn't worth it. But like that, like, when you get like a little bit of a reputation, then stuff like that stops happening. Because I was picked on because I was smaller than everybody. That was the big thing. Was like, I was nearly like easy pickings for people because I was smaller. But then,
and then what happened? You were just like, fuck up, Rob Battery.
Yeah, but because that's it, then people would stop coming at me then, because even before I knew how to fight in MMA, I'd be just like, all right, well, come on out onto the road and we'll just have a straightener about it. Because I remember it was me ma, like I said, she was like me ma and me dad. So she was like, you just have to start fighting back here. That's just the way it is. Said her a lot more blunt than that, to be honest, but she was like, you just have to start fighting back. And then I remember just thinking, like, yeah. So it's like that saying, everybody wants it till they get it. So I'd be like, okay, well then I'm not having a conversation with you, we're just going to fight about it. And then when you would say that, then I'd be like, oh no, it wasn't like that. And it's like, no, it's exactly like that.
If they would have crossed the line, you would have been like, right, come on here.
Yeah, well, not even. If I knew there was confrontation, if they were trying to like bully me in a certain way, I would my default was like, okay, well, let's fight. Because I knew I wasn't always going to win, but I knew that if I had a fight, then people would kind of like leave me alone in a sense. It's the same kind of people. Them kind of people, like the bullies and stuff like that, they're the same kind of people who, when they're in their cars in traffic, they hold their hand on the horn, and then you get out of the car and you say, what's the problem? Oh no, sorry about that, I didn't mean, it's just like people are so willing to engage with you until then it's confrontation. And then a lot of people don't like confrontation, so then they back down then. When I'm never a kind of person that, confront people in a nasty way or whatever, but I'm definitely the kind of person that if you do it to me, like, I'm going to be the one finishing it, So yeah, I learned very early on, even before I could fight correctly, that as soon as you would put it back up to people and be like, all right, well then we're just going to fight about it, then people are not willing to fight, so yeah.
We are proudly sponsored by That Prize Guy, the #1 prize competition in all of UK and Ireland. They've given away over 130 million in prizes so far. That Prize Guy has made 8 millionaires already, with number 9 pending. For your chance to be a winner, head on over to thatprizeguy.co.uk. So you grew up tough.
Yeah,
you grew up tough in D1 then.
The streets,
for sure.
Yeah, the streets, and you know what? I'm so thankful for it, because I say it's just the people, the more people I meet who kind of had that upbringing, and they're nearly like the protectors, like, you know, they're nearly like the people who know how bad things can get fast. So, you know, they don't, you know, they're nearly like the calm bit. Like, I'm so calm a lot of the time in like really hostile situations, just because I've so much experience there, and I'm able to de-escalate situations just through things like that. So it's nearly like the more experience and the more things that you've gone through, you're nearly the one who's willing to, you know, de-escalate situations, as opposed to, you know, be the one doing it.
Well, you've been at both sides of it now. You've been the instigator and the one that's trying to calm things down. Like, so that's probably why.
Well, I suppose, like, not to say like the instigator, because like I would never kind of confront somebody. I was only reactive to it.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, that's it, because I just learned like that I wasn't afraid to fight. And I think when you're not afraid to fight, there's a lot of people who are afraid to fight. You know, they don't want the confrontation, but bullies are like, you know, they will just pick and pick and pick until you react, and then they will act the victim then. Be like, oh no, it wasn't like that, it was only a joke. But it wasn't only a joke. You know, you are actually really trying to come at me here, but the fact that now I'm willing to go, right, we'll fight. Now it's like, oh no, we are only messing, we are only playing, and it's like, nah, you weren't.
Yeah. So a lot of your character developed from that kind of growing up in that kind of environment, and then coming into fighting.
Yeah.
That was like where you kind of developed this, because this is what I'm really fascinated to know about you, Ryan, is like, obviously we'll get to the injury and what happened there, but I kind of want to know, like, because your mindset, it doesn't just come from there overnight. You don't just go, that's it, I've got it. So that's why I really want to know, like, where that kind of resilience came from, because it's not like, as much as like fighting is a very difficult thing to do, and like you build incredible character from fighting, there has to be more to it for you. Like, it's not just fighting that built the mindset that you have here. So like, is there any other things?
Yeah, well, it's just a lot of ups and downs in my life, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, don't really talk about it too much, but like me cousin, who was like 4 days apart, you know, he was like my brother, and he got shot in the head and stuff, like, you know. So, you know, there's been a lot of deaths in my family, like I touched on about, like, I never had a father or anything like that. You know, I've had so much hardship in my life that I don't really talk about it, to be honest, because it's just like, I just don't want anybody thinking like that I'm just talking about it for pity or anything like that. Like, I'm just kind of like the kind of person who's kind of just, okay, whatever is at the happening, and there's nothing that you can do to change that. So, you know, we can just deal with it and just move forward. You know, I don't like, I never like coming across like a victim, and that's why I haven't talked about my life a lot until now, because I realise that now I'm really conscious of, so I live in my head 24/7, and I act the way I act and I speak the way I speak. But sometimes, because I'm with myself 24/7 and I'm me, I automatically, for some reason, just think, oh, this is just a normal way of thinking, and this is just a normal way of speaking. But in fact, like, I've been approached by so many people all the time, still to the day, still get DMs all the time, like every single day, like multiple DMs, just telling me that how much my mindset has helped other people deal with their life. But I automatically just thought that, like, oh, this is just normal, everybody thinks like this. But it's since the accident that people are like, oh no, not a lot of people think like you, you know. So that's why I haven't openly spoke about my life and the kind of the hardships of my life. You know, that's why I haven't done it, because I just didn't want to be like this victim, or, you know, because I don't like a victim mentality. I think being a victim of life does nothing for you, and, you know, it only encourages the wrong things. Because, like I said, if you have a victim mentality and you think the whole world is out to get you, it's like you don't have to take any responsibility for, or ownership for your own life. You know, even I take responsibility and ownership even for the stuff in my life that necessarily I shouldn't, because if I take ownership and responsibility for the things that's even out of my control, it's like, okay, now I'm in a position to fix it because it's my fault. You know, even though unnecessarily, like, might not be my, you know, like the accident. I didn't break my own neck, but I mean, if I took ownership of that situation, now I'm in a position to go, okay, well, it was my fault, so I can fix it. But if you constantly blame other people on what's happening to you in your life, it's out of your control because it's not your fault. Do you know? So I just think it's, I say, especially these days, I just don't think a lot of people take enough ownership for their life and that doing themselves a disservice. If people only realise that if you just take the blame for the stuff that's, because, I mean, everybody in the world, they're only in a position that they're in because they've made a certain sort of decisions and they've carried out the actions that's led them to the point where they are in their life. And that's, if your life is going really well, that was you. And if your life's going really bad, that was you. You know, you're in control of your own life and you're only in the position that you're in because of the decisions that you have made up until this point. You know, so if you just take ownership of your life and just go, you know what, I could have made a bit of a better decision there on that one, but I'll make better decisions going forward.
Well, let me just say, like, having known you for a few years now personally, you have so many reasons that you could be a victim. Like, you could have so easily went down that victimhood mindset. Having talked about your accident and then other things in your life, like, that would have probably been the easiest option for you to go, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
You know, look at all, this has happened to me, then this happened to me, and then to make things worse, this happened to me. You could have easily went down that route. So to hear you speaking about that, like, I just think is so, like, it's so powerful that, like, I just hope that anybody listening to this, that's maybe, like, because at times we all feel like a victim.
Of course.
Like, I've got everything going for me in my life right now, and I still feel like a victim at times. I'm like, this is so hard, this or that.
Yeah. Because
we all feel
it's
like
a
that.
normal thing, bro. Like, you know, like, I mean, even, it's even people who's at having the accident that I have, you know, it's the easiest thing in the world. Go, all life is so unfair. It is, and you know, I'm not a robot. I've had them feelings. I just don't dwell on them for too long. Do you know? Because I understand first and foremost, it's not gonna solve anything.
Yeah.
If
It really
anything, it's
doesn't.
just gonna make your life worse because then you just fall into the pit of like wallowing, you know, just sitting there pitting yourself, and it literally doesn't do anything. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I want people to take from, you know, hearing me speak, is like, it's okay to have them feelings and they're valid. You know, you really might have a lot of reasons to have them emotions and them feelings, but it will not help you.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you turn your life around.
Yeah.
That's the reality, and I was very conscious of that, even though there was days where I was like, why is this even happening to me? Like, you know, like I said, there was some days where I'd wake up and feel like I'm in a Netflix movie, you know, and it's like, this is so unfair. I'm like, you know, I know what kind of a person I am, and I know the integrity that I have, and I know what way I think about people. When I put my head down on the pillow in the night, I know what way I think about people and what way I want to help people, and I want to see the good in the world. And I'm like thinking to myself sometimes, like, why is this happening to me? I'm not a bad person. Like, I'm not a bad person. Like, I've never done bad things to people, but the harsh realities of life is bad things happen to good people. That is the reality, and as soon as you realise that and accept that, it's just better for your life.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, you know, life is 90% of 90% of how you react and 10% of what actually happens to you. You know, like, you know, it's
no question.
Because, you know, we can all the world, everything, there's bad stuff that's happened to everybody in the world. You know, that's the reality. We all have a story where we feel that's unjust, or it shouldn't have happened to us. You know, I'm not the first person who was something bad that happened to. Likewise with you, likewise with everybody in the room. But you just have to accept these bad things happen. How am I going to react?
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely, bro. Well, look, we touched on it there, and let's talk about the accident. And I obviously know you very well, and the ins and outs. But for any of our audience that don't know the ins and outs, can you just give me a lowdown of what exactly happened?
So it was just Pat's class. You were there. A regular wrestling session. Wrestling class like any other Thursday. It was probably about 15 or 20 minutes. It was a great session. Actually, we had to do a private in the cage, and then we went into the open mat to wrestle and stuff. A normal Thursday, like any other Thursday, was in a kind of a turtle position on all fours, and you either had to roll back the guard or stand back up to your feet. Naturally, my instinct is always to get back to my feet because I like to strike more. So I always try to emulate stuff that I would like to do in a fight. So as I was getting back up to my feet, my arm got trapped, and as I was getting back up, I kind of gave the other person the momentum to lift me up in the air as I was getting back up. I always say it was nearly like the way it all happened. It was like, I don't know if you've ever seen that clip where Kevin Randleman slams Fedor, like a big huge suplex. Yep. So that was exactly how it happened. I remember just being up in the air and looking down at the mat and just thinking, this is not good. I remember just looking at the mat and going like my arm was trapped and just thinking, oh, this is not going to be good. So I remember I came crashing down on the side of my neck, and I was lying face down on the mat, and just remember like the power just wasn't there. I could wiggle things alright, but there was no way that I could have gotten up and just walking around or whatever. It was like at that time I could still move things, but the power was like 10%.
Yeah. Did you feel like a pop or a snap? Was there any like?
No, I didn't. Like obviously the my neck snapped, but I didn't feel the snap. You know, maybe it was just because of everything else that was going on and it was such a hectic situation, but I actually didn't feel the snap. But I knew, I was like, this is not good.
Yeah.
I've never felt like this before in my life, and you know, whatever this is really not, it's not good.
What was the kind of sensations in your body?
Like that,
was it
just
numbness? Was it?
Yeah, it was kind of like numb, but it was just like I just remember the power being so like stupidly. I remember bench pressing my face into the mat to get myself over onto my back because it was so painful. Yeah. I remember like the pain was just and bear in mind, I suppose I had never broke a bone in my body before this point, but I remember just always having a high pain threshold just from fights and injuries and stuff like that. I remember I had a really high pain threshold, but this was just unbearable. I remember thinking like, this is actually so excruciating, because you were with me when it happened, you know, and everybody was gathered around, and yeah, it was just, I remember just feeling like that I just couldn't do anything. It was the power was like 10% of my power. You know, I could still wiggle things, but there was no way that I could get up or walk around or even move for that. And I remember asking you, and remember we were having a conversation. I was having a conversation with you, and you were telling me that you hurt your back before, and you know, at that point we actually didn't know what it was. So I was asking, you were kind of saying, "Oh no, look, I hurt my back before." You know, it's like maybe it's just that, you know, but obviously it turned out to be just a little small bit more than that.
Yeah, just a wee bit worse.
Just a little touch. Yeah.
I was giving you the whole around my back that time and all, and you're lying there.
Well, in fairness, it kind of helped me a little bit because I was like, this had to happen to Paul before. Everything will be sweet.
He's doing all right.
Yeah. Well, it's probably just a bad creak in your neck. You'll be grand. Get up and shake it off. You tick.
Well, look, like I remember that night like too well, and you know, there's some things to that story. Like it took so long. Not that this is. It took so long for the
honestly
ambulance to come. We must have been in that gym near 2 hours.
Easy. To
like midnight. I guess, and a very cold. It was January, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember us being there, and you were just like, "This isn't good, boys. Like, like this really isn't good." And like, obviously, we're trying to keep things positive. But we knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
Like, we knew. So talk to me more. Then obviously you get brought to hospital the next day.
Well, sorry, before you go on, do you remember the ambulance guy?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the ambulance
Taking
guy?
the hand out of you.
What?
Taking the hand out of you.
No, yeah, he was like on a pain on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad is the pain? And I remember looking at him and going, from 1 to 10, and he said yeah, and I said an 11. And I remember he goes, I remember, mate, I'll never forget that. If I ever find out who that fella is, I'll be up at his door.
We can find out.
I'm telling you.
Oh,
Like,
we
I
can
never
find out.
and then I remember I was like, mate, I'm the kind of person before the accident, still to the day, even when in hospital, as I was going through all this injury, I wouldn't take the pain medication.
Yeah.
But I remember at that time, I was begging him for pain medication. I was like, mate, I'm telling you, there's something really not right here. And I remember having to beg him for some pain medication, and then he gave me a little bit, and I was like, that's absolutely at the doing nothing.
Yeah.
Will he give us some more? And he was like looking at me going,
yeah, they had
like,
to
you're
wait to get
milking
you
this
in.
a little bit, like, almost, you know. So yeah, just
Crazy,
yeah,
bro.
crazy.
So talk to me then about, obviously get brought to the hospital. When's your first kind of diagnosis? Have they brought you to the hospital and immediately started doing scans, or how did that process go?
I remember it was Owen MacDonald came to the hospital, with me. He's fired out of the gym, obviously we know Owen well. He was there with me and we were yapping away and everything was actually alright. Obviously I didn't know the extent of the injury at this time, but I was lying there and he was with me, and then I remember they were talking to me for a little bit before I got seen that, and then I remember kind of they had asked me a couple of questions and I had said some stuff and they were like, oh, we think we need to get you in for a scan now. And then I think they got me into the scan and got the results soon enough, and they were like, he needs to go for an emergency operation right now. And then obviously went for...
And sorry to
No, go ahead.
To interrupt. Were they communicating that to you? Were they saying, look, we've just done your scan here, we need to get you in for surgery?
I don't think at that point like they were saying it to me like that, but I think they were like, we need to get a move on this, but I don't think they were, maybe they weren't trying to panic me, but they didn't say, oh, we need to go now, it wasn't like that. But they ended up getting me in for the operation. It turned out like, having this mindset and, the resilience and everything, it's all great, but I mean, if I hadn't had them two surgeons that night, world level surgeons, and the way they were able to give me the operation, like John and Rakesh, you can have everything you want, but they saved my life. There's no question about that. They done the surgery. They went in through the front here and went in through the back. And I believe they got the surgery done in like a crazy time, in terms of like, it was 5 hours and it's usually about 8 or 9, something to that effect. But they said because I was so fit and healthy, my body responded so well to the anaesthetic that I was actually so calm and they were able to do the job, and the surgery was a huge success. But still at that point, they didn't know whether it was complete or incomplete, because like again, you can have every mindset in the world, but if you're complete, the likelihood is if you're never really going to do anything. So thank God I was incomplete, but we didn't know that at that time, because the next day when I woke up from the surgery, I couldn't actually turn my head. It was just nothing. That was it. It was just zero. So it wasn't until like maybe, I think it would have been a week and a half or something to that effect later, that I was able to wiggle my toe. Like it was just a flicker, like just this. And because
it was a week and a half until you were able to move any part of your body.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind in that week?
Do you know what? I was very upset the first day after the operation. The next day, I was like, really upset. But then the day after that, I just remember thinking like, no, relax, man. Don't be panicking. Like you're gonna be sweet here. Like it's all just gonna come back. And I guess at that time I had no business thinking like that, because I really didn't. But
what did the doctors tell you was gonna happen?
they weren't saying much to me. They weren't really communicating much, to be quite honest. They weren't saying a lot. It was only really after they saying that I was incomplete that they're like, oh, you know, we can't say where it goes from here, but that's a really good sign that you're incomplete.
What do you mean by incomplete?
So basically, you know, if you're complete, there's so much damage to, like, you know, if your spinal cord is severed, then you're obviously complete. Or else if the damage is like a lot of damage, you can also be complete, and it's just like basically there's no kind of signals going from your brain to your spinal cord, so it doesn't really matter what happens from there. Is like you can't do anything. But because I was incomplete, where the damage was like really significant, but because I wasn't quite to the level where it was like, oh, you're done, because if you're complete, it's you're you know. So it was a week and a half, and then I flicked my toe, and then I remember just thinking like, sure, I knew that was gonna happen anyway. Do you know? Like, I remember just thinking, of course I was gonna move. Of course wasn't gonna be me. You know, where, to be quite honest, I had no business thinking like that, but it was just the thoughts that was going through my mind. You know, I remember saying at that time that, like, I was going to be back running with my dog and back doing kind of whatever I wanted to do, you know, but like that, like, I had really no business having any of them thoughts at that time. But I was just so optimistic, and I just know that I know me so well, and I know my brain so well, that nobody else was going to tell me what was going to be the outcome of that apart from me. I was the only one who was going to make this whole story go a different way. And nobody else had the power to tell me that it was going to be any other way.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, like in that kind of period between you having the surgery and then getting the first bit of movement back in your toe, what was the basic kind of advice they were giving in terms of, like, were they saying, Ryan, you know, we need to give us a few weeks and hopefully, you know, then we can have a look about where your future might be, if you'll be able to walk again, if you'll be able to sit again? Or was it a case of, like, were you left in the dark, or
it's just kind of just left in the dark almost,
because they don't know.
Yeah, because they just didn't know.
So you had really absolutely no business to be thinking, no, I'm gonna walk again.
No,
you had no business.
Like no business.
Yeah,
you know, but it was just, I just really, like, I used it. So I was sitting there when I couldn't move anything, and I used to visualize me back running with my dog, me back in the gym doing all these things. But again, really no business doing it. You know, I never once, you know, my friend, a good buddy of mine, called me a psychopath because he told me that he was like, you mean to tell me that you never Googled the comeback or anything, you know, what the outcome of stuff like this is? And I remember my response was, why was I going to Google something that I already knew the answer to? You know, that was like, I was already at the scene in my head, and I was like, no, of course this is not going to be the way I am for the rest of my life. You know, it's just a little pissed up. That's why I never got too down about the accident, because, you know, even when I was getting fed and, you know, getting washed and stuff, I was like, it's not ideal, but you'll be back doing this in a couple of months, you know, for yourself. And long and behold, you know, here I am doing, you know, and I've been independent since I've left the hospital. You know, I didn't need anything. When I left the hospital, even though, you know, it was like, I left the hospital and I was kind of like, I could just waddle at that point. It was nearly like March of the Penguins, where there was just a little shuffle, but I could still kind of do everything by myself. But like that, it was because I wouldn't really let the nurses and stuff do a lot of stuff for me. You know, I'd be like, no, let me do this for myself, and let me try do this. You know, and when I wasn't capable of doing it, I'd be like, I would go, okay, you can do it. But I was constantly trying to do things for myself, where that's what I see in the hospitals and stuff, because they're already at the been told, like, oh no, this is you for the rest of your life. They don't even try.
Yeah.
And that's where my issue is, you know, because it's all well and good me, you know, thinking the way I think, because that's what I do, because that's just the way my brain works. But for other people who are not as fortunate to be as strong, they give up on themselves because the experts are at the telling them, no, here, this is you. So they don't even try. And that's where my issue is. Of course, they can't go around telling everybody, don't worry, you'll be back walking in a little while. I understand you can't say that, but I just think the delivery on how the approach it could be a little bit better, because I truly believe that there might be a good percentage of people who actually might be able to battle a little bit better if they just get a little bit more support. You know, and they were given out to me in the hospital, because I used to be like very supportive of people, and I'd be like, no, let's just keep on trying here. You know, they told me that I wasn't going to do anything, and look, I couldn't walk at that time, but I could stand up. You know, and I was like, I'm back on my feet, I just can't walk yet, but I'm standing up. So they used to be like, I remember they pulled me into the office one time. They're like, look, we understand that you think the way you think and your mind works the way it works, but everybody's not like you, and you can't be just going around the hospital saying things like that to people. And I'm like, why not? You wrote me off, and you told me that I was never going to do anything. And look now, what are you saying now? Can't say anything now because I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do. So I was kind of having a little battle with them in the hospital all the time, because we just didn't see eye to eye. Like, I'd be like, an hour a day is just not good enough. You know, I was like nearly trained in like a training camp, like where I just wanted to be walking all the time.
We interrupt this episode to tell you about our amazing sponsor, the Record Room Hillsborough, where we are right now. The Record Room comes with all the equipment you need, with multiple set options, whether you want to launch your own podcast or if your company needs to shoot its own marketing content. It is a one-stop shop for everything that you need. If this sounds like something that you need, use the booking link in the description, let yourself in, and hit record. I remember you saying to me, like I would have been in with you at times when you were doing rehab, and I remember you just saying, if there's any slots that come available for rehab and anybody in the hospital doesn't want to do the rehab,
I'll take them. Yeah.
And it's a story I always tell people. And something I want to talk to you about is your actual rehab journey, because it's not just a miracle you go from this to walking again and having your normal life. There's excuse me, I always tell people this story of one day being in the hospital with you, and you're doing some rehab work with Paul McCormick. Shout out to Paul.
Yeah, legend.
What a guy.
What a man.
And I remember the workout you're doing. So you're essentially, you've got a medicine ball behind you, and you've got or like a one that you can sit on and bounce off. A yoga ball.
Remember you were behind me.
But you have the medicine ball as well. So you're basically going down, touching your bum off the yoga ball, coming up and throwing the medicine ball.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what point of the injury this was. How many months roughly?
It probably would have been about 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely out of this world to even think about that. But I want to get the timeline and events after this.
Yeah.
But I remember I was like, you were maybe like 15 reps in or something. And at that point, you were at max. Like, you were sitting down, and for you to get your arse off the yoga ball to get back up again, your whole body, you know how you do like your last rep of like a squat, and you have nothing left?
Yeah.
That was you at 15 reps, and you were just about getting up to the top again.
Yeah.
And I was standing behind you. I was like, holy fuck, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you just went to Paul, 15 more.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and went, what? You went 15 more?
Yeah.
You banged out another 15 reps. And I mean, every single rep that you done from that point was max effort.
Yeah.
Like, you had... That was like... It was like your last rep every time.
Yeah.
And you fucking pushed through it. Yeah. And you got up and you fucked that medicine ball at Paul, and you got back down again, and you done 15 more reps.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that story. Always think about that story when it comes to just everything about you, everything that embodies everything about this road to recovery. And for you to get back to your normal life after how many months from the injury to you leaving the hospital? 6 months to you're fully self-sufficient, like
I was at that point,
driving around, you're walking around.
But like that, you saying what was going on behind the scenes.
But that's what I want to talk to you about.
Sorry,
because your rehab was like a fight camp. It was like a double fight camp every single day, and you're asking to do extra hours, and you're repping this out, and like, yes, you had a good support network. I'm sure you had people visiting. But most of the time, you're by your fucking self.
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
But every fucking day, you were doing that rehab.
Yeah.
How many hours? I don't know.
Yeah,
and that's why you're sitting here today, walking up them stairs.
No,
like
of
it's
course.
fucking nothing.
Of course. Because, like, you know, to the extent that I used to go to, bro, like, I don't know if I've ever said this to anybody, but I used to wake up in the night when I couldn't sleep and walk around the room in the dark, stupid, like absolutely stupid. Because I mean, like, what if I tripped and whatever? But in my mind, it's like, this is more work.
Yeah.
These are more reps that I'm doing that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
You know, and people will look at me now and go, you know what, like, that's like great recovery, this, that, and the other. Dave didn't see what it took to get here. You know, you just people like that. I think I said on my Instagram, people just see the milestones, but they don't see the days where like that I'm waking up during the night and walking around the room for extra reps. They didn't see you and Paul coming in to help me do rehab. You know, people just see what they see from the outside. They didn't see the struggles of the stuff going on in my personal life, which was like bigger than the accident itself. You know, like, it's like people don't see all these things, but I mean, you know, it's that is it. It's you can have anything you want. You just need to want it bad enough. You know, you're only in the position that you're in because you wanted it bad enough, and you still do to the day. Like you still train to the day. Like you're fighting on some of the smallest shows in the world, and you're fighting on the biggest. You know, like to a degree, people would look at you and go, "Oh, Paul's made it," where you're like, absolutely not. I'm only getting going. I'm still so hungry for this. You know, and that's what I say to people. You can have anything you want in this world. You just want to have it bad enough. You know, that's it. You know, people just, if people just realise that you can actually do and have anything that you want, you just need to put in the work and don't let anybody tell you any different. You know, it would have been easy for me to listen to the experts and, you know, geez, this doesn't look good. Okay, that's your opinion. You don't know me. You don't see the work that I'm doing that yous are not even letting me do. They fought with me and they'd be like, Ryan, how are these people coming into your room? You know you can't do rehab outside the times and whatever. And I'm just like, these are just my friend. Your friends coming in with a load of gym equipment. And I'm like, yeah, they're just coming from PTs. That's what I used to be. I used to be just saying, and you know what the thing about it is, bro? It's like, I used to remember pulling one of the guys, and I think because they thought that I fought at a high level and stuff like that, and there was a lot of people in visiting me, and the story went all around the world, and this, that, and the other. I think that they used to think that I thought that I was above being in there. And I used to say to them, I remember saying to the guy, I don't think I'm above anybody. Nobody in this world do I think I'm above. But it's easy for you to sit there and tell me, don't do this and don't do that. You get to have the privilege to go home to see your wife and kids tonight, walk into your front door, go for ice cream tomorrow, walk your dog. I'm stuck here and this is my life right now. And I'm willing to do anything possible to get my life back. You know, and that's just the reality of it. Like, you know, these people who are telling me not to do all these extra things had the privilege that they just went about their life. This was my life now. And I needed to do anything to get my life back. And I did. You know, that was it. If there had been 15 sessions a day available, 20, I would have done every single one of them. You know, and that's, like you say, that's the only reason why I'm in the position that I am today. People look at me and go, Jesus, it's a miracle, this, that, you know, I was in a gym in America and there was like 30 odd people and I was the only one in the gym to be able to go up and walk around. They were like, we've never seen anybody like you. We don't even really know how to approach you because we've never seen anybody like you. It was like you just deadlifted weights there. You know, I don't know, it was like deadlifted 15 or 20 kilo. He's like, we've never seen somebody be able to do that. I remember the chiropractor guy was telling me this. It's like, I've been here in this gym so long and I've never seen anybody do that. And I was just thinking like, this is just normal, you know, but evidently not. But it's like, I'm not any miracle. It was just, I just wanted it and really worked hard for it, you know. And that's the reality of it, you know. It looks from the outside like, oh, you know, and even people with you, you know, they're like, Paul Hughes, this superstar, you know, fighting Magomedovs, all these things, and it's like, no, you haven't seen the work, they haven't seen the work rather that you've put in to get to this point. You know, sometimes it's like they say, it takes 10 years to look like an overnight success. you know, and like that, my mindset has been built way before the accident, through the hardships in my life and through, you know, fighting and the people who I've met in my life, like, you know, people like yourself, you know, people like you, people like Pa, Shando, you know, people in the gym. I only surround myself with winners, you know, and not winning in the sense that like competitors or whatever, but you know, I only surround myself with good people who's looking to move forward with their life. I don't have any negative people in my life. It's not to say that I'll never help negative people, because some negative people come to me and I'll be like, okay, well, let's change our mindset to start. You know, that's a non-negotiable. You know, that's I'll help anybody, but I'm not gonna have anybody be around me who's a victim or a mood hoover. You know, none of that. Like, it's like, we're here to win, or else you're not gonna be in my circle. That's it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, unbelievable, bro. Unbelievable. I think that people listen to this, and I encourage anybody listening to that knows somebody that's maybe going through something, if it's an injury or even just a general rut in their life. I think there's just so much inspiration to be got from your story, especially because of talking about your upbringing and what made you so resilient. And then now your mindset of just victim mentality out the fucking window. Like, it's just, you can't be told that enough. Like, it's just so powerful. Yeah, it's fascinating. So we've talked, I could talk to you like so much longer about like exactly like month to month process of your rehab, but I think the viewers got like a bit of an idea of like the starting point and towards the end point. I want to know now, because I see you being a lot more active in social media. I see you out talking in a lot more podcasts and putting your story out there, which is obviously a conscious effort. Like, what is kind of your drive and your why now, having come through this injury and having your life basically back together as much as you have control of? What's driving you now?
The biggest thing is just to help people, bro. Like I said, you know, when I'm in my mind 24/7, I think it's a normal way to speak like this and to think the thoughts that I have. But then when I speak to other people who are going through hardships in their life, they're like, oh no, I'd actually really like, that would help me if I could think a little bit like you. So, you know, I've been doing more stuff on social media. I've been doing more talks. So like, I've been talking to colleges and stuff like that. And, you know, I've been doing a little bit more public speaking, because I just want people to understand that, like, that I'm not special. I'm not this robot that you can't relate with me. I'm like everybody else in the world. It's just I have certain, you know, like, I've set a standard for myself, you know, that I'm not gonna go below for anybody. You know, like, I've non-negotiables in my life, and you know, that's the reason how I'm able to get through a lot of things, is because, you know, I don't let myself down. If I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, and that's why I had the belief in myself to go, I'm gonna be back walking, and everybody thought, yeah, you're crazy, but I knew that previous to the accident, if I said I was gonna do something, I was gonna do it, whether that took me, you know, 10 days or 10 years, I was gonna chip away at it till it happened, you know, and like that, you can have any life you want through persistence and hard work and belief. That's it. That's just what I want people to take from this, you know. I just see too many people taking on board the opinions of people who are not living the life that they want. You know, like, there's people on on Instagram and social media that tell you how to fight. What business have they got telling you how to fight when you're fighting at a world class level and they've never even had a fight? So why would you be bothered by their opinion if they're not living the life? You know, it's fair enough if John Jones is coming to you and going, Paul, maybe you should change this. Okay, John, you're the world champion. I want to do everything that you've done, so I'll take on board. But how many people are just consumed by regular people's opinions that they're not even doing anything with their life? You know, too many people are like opinionated and they're not doing anything in their life, and then other people are consumed by their opinions, and it's like, why do you even care what them people are saying? They're not doing anything with their life. You know, fair enough if someone's giving you some constructive criticism, how like you want to be like, you know, because like it's like that saying, it's like no millionaire is gonna laugh at you for starting a business. No world champion is gonna look at you for having a fight. You know, it's usually, like I say, the loudest bills come from the cheapest seats. You know, it's usually the people who aren't doing anything in their lives who like to, you know, discredit everybody else because they're not doing it. You know, the people who's doing stuff in their life, they're too busy to be casting opinions on other people, you know, and that's like one thing that I really want to get across to people. It's like, don't be letting other people put limits on what you can and can't do. Do you know?
To me, listen to you speak today on like all these things, it kind of comes back to your same point. Like it seems to me that is where a lot of your message is, like just blocking out the noise and blocking out what other people say. Because at the end of the day, if you had listened to what other people said, you wouldn't be in this position.
Of course.
You wouldn't have walked up them stairs to be here right now. So that's what seems like to me, listening to you today. That's one of your messages that you put out there.
Of course, because, and you know what, unfortunately, but fortunately sometimes as well, that I've always had this mindset. I've always said these kind of things, but now it's just a lot more credible because I've done what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunate that it had to happen that way for people to go, oh, he actually does know what he's talking about. But I mean, if it had to happen that way for me to help other people, then so be it. I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, look, you're just using the biggest obstacle that has came in your life as something that, you know, can help people.
Yeah. Well, that's so literally all I want to do, bro. I just want to help people because I see so many people struggling, you know, and if they just had a little bit more guidance and they just had a little bit more direction, because I only like that, like, I'm a good person. I only want people to have good lives and just fulfill, you know, their dreams and whatever they want to do in their life. You know, it's like everybody has different measures of success. For you, your measure of success for right now is to be a world champion. But for somebody else, their measure of success might be starting a small business or starting a family, whatever it may be. You know, we all have different measures, but it's just like, you know, I just want people to just fulfill their potential.
Yeah.
That's all I want, you know, like, so.
Yeah. Well, look, you're, we're hitting about that time, but let me just say, like, your message is, like, it's incredible, but it's so relatable. Like, you are a relatable person because you're one of the guys, like, you're relatable. You don't come from, like, here or there. Like, you're just a normal fucking guy. You've had this completely abnormal thing to happen to you in your life, and your mindset to overcome that is just incredible. And I think that it's just, you being so relatable has such power in that it can help so many people, because they can just go, he's a normal guy just like me. You know, he was just up training in the gym like every other, like, aspiring fighter, and now, like, it just shows the power of the mind.
Because like, that's what I do want to make abundantly clear. Like, you know, I'm not any different. I don't sit there and I don't not have them thoughts. I am vulnerable. I am insecure. You know, it's just what you choose to do with them feelings. You know, I'm not a robot. I get all them feelings. It's just I choose to deal with them a lot differently than other people. But it doesn't matter because I still feel them feelings. You know, it's not like I'm immune to all them things. Like, you know, there's many nights where I've, like, been in the bed and been, like, upset and, you know, like, cried myself to sleep some nights. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, it's a pretty heavy thing to go through, especially like with, like I'm saying, like, all the stuff that was happening in my personal life at that time as well. You know, so that was like another battle, and arguably for me anyway, it was a bigger battle than the injury. But, you know, like I said, you can either let it beat you and let it get you down, or else you can just react in a positive manner and keep on going forward, you know. And that's what I do want. Like, one of the big takeaways for people to understand as well. Like, I'm no different than anybody listening to this podcast. You know, I feel all the feelings. I just choose to deal with them in a different way. And that can be taught. Everybody listening to this can also feel them feelings and choose to deal with them differently than it might be like the human default.
Yeah. Well,
you
you're
know?
proof of that.
Yeah.
You're damn good proof of that.
I appreciate it.
So I appreciate you coming in, bro, sharing the story. I'm sure it's still like, I know you talk about it openly, but I'm sure it's still not an easy thing to go through, because it's obviously incredibly traumatic.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you coming up all the way up the road to
share
it with us.
Thanks so much.
Just, as I said before, I encourage anyone that's listening that does have someone, maybe it's yourself, but it's someone that's potentially going through something. If it is an injury, I mean, what better of a story to hear than Ryan's? I think it has the power to help so many people's lives, and I just hope you keep doing what you're doing. I wish you all the success with the documentary. I know it's going to be incredible. I know it's also going to inspire many people. And yeah, bro, thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. And I just want to thank you personally, brother, for always being there for me. You know, when like that people don't see, like, you know, I had a serious support network behind me. Thank God, you know, because that was such a lift for me to have all you guys in the hospital room with me all the time, and it just really lifted me mood. You know, even though, like, you know, it was a tough time. We all used to come and used to joke, and we just had the craziest thing is, like, some of the best days of my life have been spent in the hospital were all you guys, you know, because that time spent together was invaluable, really, like, you know. So yeah, I just want to thank you personally for being there for me and just being such a great friend. And
least I could do, brother. Least I could.
Appreciate it.
Absolute least. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Fuck yeah, bro. Yeah, I hear, bro. You're the man.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I really, I guess, I mean what I say there about just the relatability of you.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, literally anybody in the fucking planet that has got an injury or anything similar, I just hope they can hear your story.
Yeah. But that's
because there's not many out there like you. There's maybe some, but I tell you one thing, I know that you didn't fucking look up any other people's stories. You just went, I'm the story.
Nah, like we said, bro, didn't we were saying it from the fucking get-go that, like, it's like they're gonna study us one day.
Yeah.
You know, like, remember we did used to say that early on.
Fucking right we did.
You know what I mean? And that's it, and they will. You know, they were like, what did this guy do? You know, and that's it. But like that, I just want to just really just make sure that people understand that, like, I'm not a robot, you know what I mean? And you're not a robot. You know, you didn't end up in the position that you're in. Like, you have good culture genetics. I'll say that about you.
You
know what I mean? Fucking, I'll say that about you. The Lascelles fucking paid off but you're no different, you know what I mean? You've just worked hard and got to the position that you're in, you know what I mean? And like, that's it. It's funny, like, with people, isn't it, when they say you're in a certain position, even you now, and they think, like, you just got there by mistake or you were lucky, and they, like, don't literally say, like, you living the life. Like, when people talk to me about you, like, I always say that. I say, like, Paul, like, you have everything. And I'm not just sitting here and saying this because we're across from each other, but you have everything because you're so... Like, you're so, obviously, like, you're really talented, but you have the work ethic and you live the life. You don't go out and party, you don't do all these things that other people are doing. And that's why you're in the position that you're in.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
But people sometimes, I think some people like to do it because they nearly, they don't do it themselves, so they're like, sure, he just got lucky.
That's the
easiest
thing to do.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing to do. It's like, you don't have to look at yourself then, essentially. Just be like, oh, there's something different about that person, and that's why they're there.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't be there.
Exactly.
That's like this.
It's nearly like a cop out in a sense. Yeah. It's like, or I could be in that position, but and it's like, no, you can be in that position. You just don't want to work hard, and you don't want to live the life. You don't want to, like, spend 22 hours of the day obsessing over it, and then the other 2 hours sleeping. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The only limits we have are those we set for ourselves.
100%, and I truly believe that. That's why I just really want to make people realise, like, you know, and that's it. Like, even I've pointed it out, you're no different than anybody else either. It's just, you've just worked hard and put yourself in a position, and much like what I've said I was going to do. You've been saying this stuff from day one as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like you're just at the ending up.
The delusional self-belief is something like there's...
It's mad, isn't it, actually, like when you actually think about it?
Because it's a hard thing to tell people as well. Like, it's a hard thing to be like, oh, you have to... Well, I mean, you do have to have delusional self-belief.
Of course.
It has to be a case of, like, nobody believes that I can fucking do this, but I fucking know that I can.
Bro, I'm sure when
it takes
people
so many years to catch up for other people to go,
100%.
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, because I'm sure when people found out that you were fighting what's his first name?
Usman.
Yeah. People are like, fuck mate, this kid's gonna get roasted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's fighting Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, even AJ McKee, they were both big underdogs, like huge underdogs for both.
And then, you know, you're saying this the whole time and people are like, yeah, okay. Good luck with that one, buddy. We'll see how that ends up for you. And then meanwhile, fucking you end up going out and bashing the two of them, and then obviously, unfortunately, the second fight, but it is what it is, you know. But yeah,
I hope just keep fucking putting the story out there, bro. Like, it's so fucking incredible.
Nah, I will, bro, because like that, like my main objective is to help people. Like, you know what I mean. Everything else is cool and stuff, but like that. You know, when you do understand that not everybody has the mindsets that we're fortunate enough to, and
but it can be
fortunate as well, like in the sense that, but like, you know, we've worked for it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't grow up thinking like this, you know. Like, I mean, if I was to listen to my family and everybody else, like, I definitely wouldn't have this mindset.
Yeah.
You know, they're all like, my ma's like very safe and stuff. She'd be like, what are you doing? Would you not just get a normal job and all that? Like, and I'm like, why, ma? You know, so it can just be like everybody else in the world. You know, but like that, like, it's like we've actively opened our mind to that part, our part of the brain, to be open-minded enough to accept these kind of things. Where some people just close their mind, a lot of people close their mind off, but hopefully with stories like this, like, and even people saying you do your thing, it'd be like, I know, because you're doing it, you're just not actively kind of going out to spread the message in the sense, but like people like you think there's no kids looking at you now in Belfast and going, here's that fella Paul Hughes, he's from Lavium, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and he's
since
like,
the last one, it's been a shit. My world's completely changed in that regard.
Class.
It's weird. A few people have said to me now, like, see when everyone was coming up when Conor McGregor was the man, you're the fucking next man.
You're the
like,
man.
Fuck, that's so weird to think about, because obviously,
like,
looking at what he was when we were coming up, and it's like, you're the next guy, and I'm like,
and it's like, and then you're sitting there going,
that's weird.
I'm that man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But it's a tremendous privilege, like,
bro. It's like,
don't take it lightly either.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Like, it's like, even like, you know, we've said it way before Volk said it the other night, but pressure is a privilege. Do you know, because it means something's expected of you.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Not everyone has the opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity to have that.
Yeah.
You know, and now here you are leading the way for young kids. Like, you know, you're leading the way for young kids who's going to be world champions after you.
Yeah.
And they're going to be talking about you in a couple of years going, geez, like, you're a world champion of the UFC now. Like, what made you get into it? And I was like, oh, Paul Hughes.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Mad,
it's like mental. But that's the reality of it, isn't it?
It's mad.
You know?